Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Microsoft Flight Simulator, and today I think I've got something really awesome for you guys. If you are someone who is trying to use a rotary or a dial to adjust your heading, or perhaps your vertical speed, or perhaps your altitude, and for example the heading and altitude are probably the biggest ones. Heading moves only in increments of 10, and your altitude only moves in increments of thousands of feet. So if we switch over to altitude. Now mine specifically, I am using the Bravo throttle quadrant. However, in conjunction, by the way, with the Alpha flight yoke. However, I don't think that has anything to do with it. I do not think this has anything to do with Honeycomb. I think this is completely 100% Microsoft Flight Simulator in the way they have this coded. And I think I have also figured out why. So, first let's talk about how this works. In Microsoft Flight Simulator, in their controls, okay, when you set up a toggle, okay, for example, we turn the battery switch on, you turn your, if you have the Bravo, you turn your rotary for your autopilot over to heading or vertical speed. You would think that it sends one quick pulse, right? So I turn my battery switch on, boom, it just sends one command, boom, turn the battery on, and then goes quiet. It doesn't. When we turn that battery on, it's actually, I get what it's doing, it's simulating a live connection, meaning that it's constantly repeating that command, battery on, battery on, battery on, battery on, battery on, okay? And this goes for any of the toggle switches, okay, where a normal button isn't a problem because you push it and it lets go, okay? It can only send the command as long as you're holding your finger down on that button, but a toggle switch, it's not doing that. And I think that's causing the problem, because here's what we can do. If we go in, and by the way, this doesn't require any third-party software, nothing like this. This is all in-game, okay? I don't have anything else running. I know before I told you guys about the FS tool in a previous video that has a fix for this. I think I know why it has a fix for it, and it doesn't require anything outside of it. So here's what we're doing. We're going to go to controls, and you can see right now I have my TBM 930 profile. Pay no attention to that. That's not the important part. The important part is that you can see all these things are mapped, okay? And then same thing with my Alpha flight controls, okay? All these things are mapped. What I've done is I've created two profiles, one for each. So if we move over to Alpha test, hit apply and save, and we're going to do the same thing with the Bravo. Notice that only the axes are mapped here, no buttons at all. And we're going to do the same thing over here. Oh, if I can find what I did with it. I've got a few. Boom, here we go. Alright, so here, again, this doesn't matter. Don't pay attention, we don't care. But only axes are mapped, okay? This is mixture, propeller, and throttle. And then the only thing I've got is the rotary for actually adjusting the autopilot. So we're just going to hit apply. Go into resume, and now everything went dark, and this is what I was telling you. And it's because the sim knows that connection is gone now. So all we have to do is spin the aircraft back up. This was actually part of the dead giveaway, was that when I unmapped those controls, I lost everything. That's what made me go, that doesn't make sense. Why would that suddenly do that? Because it thinks that the connection has been terminated, and therefore we have turned the pilot off. Or the power off. But anyway, so to get to the juicy stuff, watch the autopilot. We are now moving in hundreds of feet. Now if you spin it quickly, you can sometimes get it to go in thousands. But for the most part, as long as you just, move at a reasonable pace, so like you start going fast and it will do it, but click. Like if I want to get to 13,300 feet. There you go. If I want to go 13,200, 100, 13. I can keep going. I can do this all day, guys. And anyway, now there's no easy way for me to easily switch over to the heading bug, but I can promise you it resolved the heading issue as well. Okay. And actually, you know what? There might be a way. Now, it's not the way it's designed to work, but I'll show you guys just for the interest of making sure you guys see that it works for both. What would it be? Heading? Oops. No, decrease heading button, select heading bug. I think that's what we want. And I'm going to put it to a button it wouldn't normally be on. Instead of setting it to the rotary, I'm setting it to the heading button on the throttle to set the master mode. But that should work if I selected the right command. It's very possible I didn't. But if we tap it, oh, let me do this. There you go. So if I want to get to 246, there you go. So now, awesome. That part's fixed. But overkill. You're telling me that all my buttons and toggles and switches and everything that I bought this $500 of hardware for, I can't use. Well, no, I'm not saying that. You can't use it in-game. I have a solution, I think. So here's what we're going to try to do. You guys are going to be with me for it. So we've identified the problem. If that's all you guys need to hear and you have an alternative, by all means, feel free to terminate the video here. I hope you guys enjoyed it. For those of you who don't, stick around. Here's my alternative for you. All right. So for this next segment, we're going to use the Cessna 172. That way, for my situation, I have the Alpha flight yoke and the Bravo throttle quadrant. Everything is, looks the same. It's got 2 avionics switches, 2 master switches, etc. So it's going to be for ease of use. All right. But depending on your control setup, it's totally up to you how this is going to work. But let me show you guys what we're going to be using. The software we're going to be using actually comes from DCS World. The community, one of our community members, Avantar here, made a program called RSMapper. And this is an old tutorial I did of it, but I'll put a link to a more updated one down in the description below. There will also be 2 YouTube video links that I did. One for the F-16 and I think one for the F-18, where I actually go through step by step and configure the aircraft using RSMapper, so you guys will be able to see the advantage of it. The nice thing for Microsoft Flight Simulator is that it doesn't matter what aircraft we're in, the keybinds are the same. Okay, where DCS World, it's not. The keybind are all aircraft specific, right? So the key commands for the F-16 are different from the F-18, etc., etc. All right, but anyway, so just click here. It'll take you to this page. Grab this guy here, this RSMapper 0.51. All right, and then place that in any directory you wish. Okay, so for example, I have it under my DCS apps, RSMapper 0.51. Now, when you unzip it, it may have another zip inside of it. Just extract it. And in there, you should see this folder and then this inside of it. Now, I've already created a profile for testing, but I'm going to delete that so you guys can see it from start to finish. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to launch RSMapper. And it's saying this because here's one of the caveats to this. I'll give you guys the warning. When you launch this and you create a profile, okay, I have it set to automatically try to load the last used profile, which is this DCS World RSMapper. Whatever controllers or controls that you had plugged into your computer at the time of creating this profile, you need to make sure that they are still plugged in at the time you try to load the profile. If they're not, you'll get this error and the profile will be ruined. Now, you can edit these. These are an XML file, so you can use Notepad++ to open it. But you can remove any of the missing controllers from it. But you need to be XML savvy. I'm not going to go through that part. But if you get that error, that's why. It means that a controller that you had at the last time you used this profile is no longer plugged in, which is my case right now. Okay, so now let's go ahead and talk about for us for the first time. So I'm going to close this. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Edit and select Devices. And RSMapper cannot do axis. It only does buttons. So anything that has axis, you don't need. So for example, the mouse, I don't want it. Now, I'm not going to be using my gear shift for Flight Simulator. I don't need my TPR rudder pedals for RSMapper because, again, it cannot do axis, and that's all the rudder pedals have is your brake and your rudder axis. Okay, I'm not going to be using my Warthog throttle and joystick. And I'm not going to be using my shifter for ATS, for American Truck Simulator. So I just want my Bravo and my Alpha flight controls. And I'm going to hit OK. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to Edit Preferences. Now this is the setting I was telling you about. Automatically attempt to open the last opened file. Okay. And so now we can go ahead and start configuring. If you were doing a profile for independent aircraft, for each aircraft, okay, what you could do is come here to profile, go new profile. Once you create a new profile, you can delete it. So I'll show you guys real quick. So if we were to create one and call it FS or MSFS in this case, okay, and I hit OK, and it's going to reload all the controls, which is fine. You go profile, now you can see Microsoft Flight Simulator default. Now I can come up here and I can delete the default one now. But for example, in my DCS world, if I were to go File, Open that DCS world profile, come over here to Profile, we would see, for example, this would say F-16C Viper, then F-18, then AV-8B Harrier, UH-1 Huey, A-10C, etc. And then as I switch aircraft, I just come here to Profile, switch it to the one I want, boom, I'm off to the skies. But since Microsoft Flight Simulator again only uses one key command for all of its aircraft, this actually is pretty easy. So now let's check out what's going on here. You can see these icons here is different from this one here. This means the button is released. This icon shows the button is depressed. And this is part of the problem with what Microsoft Flight Simulator is struggling with and why we're in this situation to begin with. With the Thrustmaster Warthog on a toggle switch, okay, on a two-stage toggle switch, so you can flip it up and you can flip it down. What it's really doing is when you flip it into the up position, it's pressing a button. When you flip it into the down position, it releases that button. Now, this is why this software was partially developed for us, was because in DCS World, it doesn't recognize the release of that button as a second command, okay? So what we had to do is we had to come in here, and you have trigger on single press. When I just tap the button or when I flip that button up, what do you want it to do? Trigger on long press. If I press that button and hold it, it can do something completely different. And then when that button is released, what do you want it to do? So for example, something that we would do is the landing gear. You'd want your landing gear on a switch on the throttle quadrant. Okay, so we would set, when I flip the switch forward, I want you to bring the landing gear up. When I flip the switch back or let go of the button, I want you to bring the landing gear down. Okay, so that's an example of where we would use that, but we're not going to have to worry about that today because for example, from my case, this is for us using the honeycomb, okay, flight controls, is both for up and down, there's a button being pressed, okay, and that button press is continuous, and that's what Microsoft Flight Simulator doesn't like, is that button is being pressed again and again and again and again and again and again and again. Now I get what it's doing. What it's doing is it's simulating a live circuit, okay, in this case. Okay, and that's why when we unmapped our controls earlier in the A320, we cleared everything out, we went back to the sim. If you remember, the cockpit went dark, and it's because it recognized that key command was missing. That key command telling the flight simulator, hey, turn the power on, was no longer being detected, so it shut the power off and turned the aircraft dark. Okay, we don't want it to do that. What RSMapper will do is it will send one quick keyboard command. Just boom, I tapped the key A. Okay, that turns the power on, and that's it. But it doesn't keep sending it. Oh, shut up, Microsoft. Anyway, so here's how we're going to use this. First thing is I'm going to make this easy. Again, because one key command controls all the aircraft, we can title these keys and change them because that way you don't have to remember what does button 13 do, what does button 14. Where now I can change it, and I'm going to title these as I'm seeing them on my yoke. So for example, this one here, let me make sure I'm not wrong again because I'm second guessing myself. Okay, yeah. So this one here is the master alternator. So I'm just going to type Alt on. Oops. Okay. And then if I go off, that's this guy here. I'm going to change it to Alt off. Oops. I say oops a lot, huh? All right, and this one is battery on. So I'm just going to do bat on, which means the one next to it is bat off. Again. I always forget that. And then like the next one's going to be avionics switches. So this is bus 1, so I'm just going to title it bus 1. And this is bus 1 off. Okay. And then this is bus 2. And these are all I'm going to do for this one for the moment, just to demonstrate how this all works. Where did I put that? Bus 2 on. Yep. Okay. And then bus 2 off. There we go. Okay. Now, I'm going to do file save as for the first time because we don't obviously want to use the DCS World one. So I'm going to type just MSFS. Oh, there's that oops again. Okay. So now we need to set up the controls. Now this is where Microsoft Flight Simulator is a real pain in the rear. So if we go to our controls, all right, so we're still on the test files, so we know that none of the key mappings are there. So I'm going to come over to keyboard profile. And this is where this becomes a drag. So we got to search by name, and we want, let's start with the alternator. Now, I had to input these commands. I already did this when I was testing this, okay? So I think one of these, it was either this one or this one, it was already bound to something else. And this is one of the things that drives me crazy about Microsoft Flight Simulator is if it pops up and it says this key command is being used on another control, right? And you say, okay, bind it anyway, it doesn't unbind the other one, okay? So now you've got one key command that's doing two different things. This may be turning the alternator on and setting the reverse prop, you know? So that part's a drag. So if you notice, if there's a key command that you want to use, and what I'm taking from is things like camera settings, things like that, if they're already being used, I'm removing them from that, or things that I don't mind using the mouse to activate, right? But you do have to go through and find them is the drag. And a lot of these aren't already bound with the keyboard command. So that may be something you do. Just make sure that no matter what you do, if you want a desired key command, that you unbind it from whatever else it's bound to. And you may get lucky here and there and find that it's not bound to anything, which I think was my case for the battery controls, which we'll see in a second. So alternator on is Shift A. So we're going to come over here and we're going to highlight alternator on. I'm going to trigger on single press. And you can actually set it for left shift, right shift, etc. But I don't think the Flight Simulator picks it up as that. But we're just going to tip left shift and A. Okay, now you can put a name up here if you needed to. But since we already have it here, I'm not going to worry about that. So left shift A, hit OK. File save. And you can see, it tells you what button it is, alternator on. And this, if we did not say alternator on right here, this would still say button 13, I think it was. Okay, but that's why we changed the name. So it shows alternator on a single press. We'll hit left shift and A. Okay, and so now we can come over here and let's go ahead and do shift off or battery off. So let's do that one next. And again, same thing. And I believe that's left control, left shift and A. And again, a file save. And then let's do the battery while we're here, just so we can see everything come to life. Okay, so yeah. Battery off, battery on, and I'm pretty sure these two I was able to select. I didn't have to remove any commands. So let's bring this back over here. Go to battery on, and I already forgot which one was which. I think Shift B was battery on. Shift B. Okay, and then battery off. That's how I typically do it. And again, do a file save. And so now we go to the sim. Come down here. There's the alternator. There's the battery. Okay, turn them off. And it's not sending any other commands. And we can still use, for example, our heading bug. You can see it's just barely walking around the corner. Now, if I spin it fast, again, sometimes you'll get double clicks, a lot of clicks, etc. But I can slow it down without issue. Okay, so there's that. And that's pretty much how you'll do all of your controls. Let's go ahead and jump back into the A320 for a second, and we'll see about setting up the autopilot controls, because I think that will be easier in that particular aircraft. Okay, so now just to verify what I was telling you guys, you can see that everything's still working as we want. But now let's set up the ability to switch between these two, right? That's the next thing we need to do. So that's going to require us to move over to the Bravo on our, or whatever system you're using, whatever rotaries you have, however you're setting this particular section up. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to come over here. Let's go ahead and pause the simulator for a second. And I need to identify our controls. So I'm going to just sort of flip some switches around here, make sure we're where we belong. Okay. 21 on the Bravo throttle quadrant. We're going to change this to the altitude bug. Okay, this allows us to manipulate the altitude setting. So I'm just going to type altitude bug. I'm going to move the rotary down. This is the vertical speed. Find our heading. Course. Oops. And finally, indicated airspeed. Okay. And then while we're here, okay, see, so this is a button. This is one of those ones where if I wanted to do, and I'm going to try to figure out how to use this for open descent, but open descent and manage descent. I haven't figured out how I'm going to do that, but I'm going to figure out something creative. But for right now, this is the heading master mode. So I'm just going to put heading master mode, where button 2 is nav. So we're going to set all these up real quick. Number 3, I'm guessing, is approach. Reverse course. Altitude. Vertical speed. And 7 should be, yep, indicated airspeed. Now the other thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do it from here. I'll show you guys what I mean in a minute. Decrease. Increase. I'm going to show you why I'm going to do that. I want Microsoft Flight Simulator out of the equation. I want to be in complete control of everything that's going on here, because this is already proven to be quite an issue here. So I'm going to clear these out and do everything ourselves. All right, so now we're going to go back to our keyboard and let's start looking for some of these. Let's just check AutoPilot. It's under select, if I thought. So yeah, this isn't quite telling me right. Yeah, let's search by name. It's going to be easier. So select. All right, select airspeed bug. And actually, I think we're going to want... Oh, it's already got all. Okay. So select the airspeed bug. So let's do this. I'm trying to make it so that way I'm not blocking everything here. There we go. That should work. So where do we have that? So here's our course bug, heading bug, vertical speed bug. Oh, there it is. Indicated airspeed bug. So let's open this one up. Shift, Control, and R. So we're going to toggle Shift, Control, and here you can just type the keyboard command R. And then just close the window. And hit OK. And what else we got here? Altitude bug. There it is. Shift, Control, and Zulu. Again, just tap the key. Hit OK. Heading bug. I saw it. There it is. And again, Shift, Control, and H. And vertical speed bug. Let's give this one a shot. So we need to bind Control, Shift, and Z. Of course it is. Select altitude, but oh, why did I hit Z? I didn't mean to hit Z. Increase cowl flap, yeah, we can keep that. Now here's what I'm talking about though. So now we need to go and find. So if we come here, and it's not too hard, just come here. But we need to see they're both set. So now we need to come here and clear the current input. Because we don't want that to happen. And apply and save it. Alright, and then now, while we're here, let's go ahead and go back to our keyboard. And, oh, no, we want to search by name, actually. Let's look for plus. Alright, Control and num plus. That's at least, that works. So we're going to find increase. And trigger on single press, Control, and we do have a num plus in here. There it is, numpad plus. Hit OK, and I'm guessing that's going to be the same thing for minus. Control, numpad minus. Is that it right there? Yep. And hit OK. Alright, so let's do a file save real quick. And now we should be able to toggle between the different configurations. Alright, so first we're in altitude mode. Oh, no, we're in heading mode. Sorry, hang on. That's where it last thought we were. So now I'm switching to altitude. And it's actually a bit more responsive. So yeah, you speed up and you'll get the thousands. Slow it down and you get the hundreds. And so now let's go ahead and switch over to the heading bug. Again, speed up, you get the tens. Slow down. So this is actually working better than it was before, in my opinion. And that could totally be placebo. Let's see here. What else did we want to check? Let's check indicated airspeed. So if we go down to the bottom, we're at IAS on the Bravo throttle quadrant. And we can now set, let's say we had a V2 of 143. And you have to go pretty slow when you get close to the number. So, I mean, you just barely start moving and it starts accelerating pretty quick. And I think it's registering continuous input and therefore increasing it on that, using that configuration. But again, so if we want to go like down to the 130s, swing it down real quick, and then slowly you can get to what you want. Okay? Anyway, so that is the long and short of how this all works. I hope you guys have enjoyed this little tutorial. I hope you guys have enjoyed this fix. Hope you guys are excited about it. Again, all the links and everything will be down in the description below for everything you need. There'll be tutorials, demonstrations of me using this software, anything that I can think of that will help you guys. It's going to be a pain in the butt. Be ready for that, getting all your controls mapped the way you like. But again, be grateful. In DCS world, you have to do this for every single aircraft if you want to use this software, where at least we only have to do it in Microsoft Flight Simulator once. Okay? So, anyway, guys, I hope you guys all had a wonderful weekend. Happy Sunday. Be safe tomorrow with the day off. And I will talk to you guys in the next one. Take care.